Hi, I'm Tracy Brosman, co-founder of World Wellness Education, a community forum to educate, encourage, and inspire a better way of life. We commonly face day-to-day challenges of stress, lack of exercise, and poor eating habits. But with the right approach, we can find freedom, wake up each morning feeling healthy, focused, and ready to take on the day. Together, we can make a difference, one story at a time. Lyme disease is the most common vector-borne illness in America today, with over 35,000 new cases reported each year. However, because the condition is easily overlooked, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate that the actual number of new cases could be over 400,000 each year. Lyme disease gets into every organ and tissue of the body, including the brain. As it moves from organ to organ, it can cause many different symptoms. This makes it difficult to diagnose. Since the symptoms vary from week to week, depending on where the virus is in the body, many patients are told that it is all in their head, that what they have is psychosomatic. Our guest today is Michelle Violette. It took Michelle nearly 20 years of going to doctor before she received the diagnosis of Lyme disease. Michelle is here to share with us her journey on how she overcame this debilitating disease. Welcome, Michelle. It is wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with, when did you first realize there was something wrong?
I was 16 years old and ended up experiencing bouts of depression. Chalked it up to hormones at the age, and discovered that it was something that needed to be looked into.
Okay.
And
so it was more than just puberty.
It was more than that, yes. And the clinical or textbook sign of Lyme disease is that it is untreatable with antidepressants. So that type of depression is temporarily treated, but then plateaus and bottoms out.
So were you on antidepressants then? Did they put you on
Started
that?
with talk therapy,
okay,
as you always do, and try and think that there's something in your head going on, as you previously mentioned, and that would work to a certain point. But the Lyme disease, what it ends up doing is going into remission. So it comes in and out, and that's the more basis for a physician to possibly say that it is psychosomatic, that it disappears as quickly as it came on.
Wow, so that must have been really hard for you and your family.
It was difficult, yeah, definitely. I mean, it certainly isn't a disease that only the individual experiences. It ripples out to your friends, your family. Certainly with depression, you tend to withdraw.
Right.
It does affect your system in an organic way eventually, especially when it doesn't seem to be able to be treated. So then you start being critical of yourself and starting to wonder, are the doctors right? Is it in my head? Am I making this happen to myself?
Wow, now did you have any other symptoms besides depression?
It started with that. I had growing up, a lot of different odd illnesses, odd physical experiences. I had rashes, aches and pains in my bones, and that started as a young child.
Okay.
And whenever it would happen, go see a doctor. Never was there any explanation for what was going on. Give you a cream, hopefully it'll pass, that kind of response. So the depression started more heavily when I was 16 years old, and then by the time I hit about 18, I woke up one morning and noticed pain in my right knee. Thought it was really odd because I knew I hadn't injured myself, but it was quite painful. And I was going to college at the time and had a large campus to walk, and by the end of the day I had developed what I guess some would call water in the knee. And when I got home, I noticed that when I pushed on it, the fluid actually shifted.
Oh.
It was very curious, and the pain became more and more strong, to the point where I went to the university clinic and had it checked out, and they were convinced that I'd hit it. They kept, well, you must have forgotten, you must have injured yourself at some point. I said,
did you play sports or anything at that time?
I did. I was pretty active. At that time, not so much though. I was very into my college career, and So I was confident that it was not an injury. I wasn't even exercising at that point. Certainly with the depression and everything that I was going through physically, that kind of activity was definitely at a lack in my life. So what they ended up doing was putting me in a knee immobilizer, still convinced that I was injured, which is the worst thing you can do for that type of presentation physically. What it presented as, which also is textbook Lyme, is rheumatoid arthritis. So my knee progressively inflamed more and more and filled with fluid to the size of, down here, a pomelo. So very, very large, and the pressure and pain was like nothing I've felt. That was the first real severe. I mean, certainly depression is a severe symptom for sure, but physically, when people can see something that's happening to your body, then it was proof that, yeah, something's going on with me. I know it, and now you can see that something's going on, but no one would believe me still.
Because they thought it was an injury.
They thought it was an injury. What ended up happening, I had several x-rays. I was referred to a rheumatoid arthritis, went through the gamut of lab tests, several different arthritis. There are different protein assays that they can go through. Everything was negative, but what did come back was that I had an acute inflammatory response in my system.
So what did that mean?
It meant that my body was trying to fight something.
Okay.
But
they didn't know what?
It didn't trigger anything, exactly. So I tested negative for rheumatoid arthritis, but presented physically in absolutely every way. And the doctor at that time, he says, you know, every now and then someone comes into my office and this happens. He says about 2%. They show that they have rheumatoid arthritis, but they test negative. So the only proof, or I would say more, I was able to convince the medical staff at different facilities that I went to, was that it shifted from my right knee to my left knee. And my left knee started blowing up. So then they knew it couldn't have been an injury. And people were starting to believe me. It's like, well, something's going on, we don't know what. And then that kind of physical pain and stiffness went to my shoulders and my digits, my fingers, my toes.
So did you almost think that you had rheumatoid arthritis?
Absolutely. I was given a prescription for that. Nothing was working, of course, up to the point where they would inject your joints with gold. That was the last stage. I was taking up to 24 aspirin a day just to keep the inflammation down. I was told that my stomach will tell me when it's too much.
Oh.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. And eventually it goes away, which is what really, it's a catch-22 for people suffering with this, because how do you explain that? You know, a miracle? It must be in your head. But yet I presented physically in so many different ways. So it's, you know, I think that...
Did you ever get tested for Lyme disease up to that point?
Every time.
Every
Lyme
time.
disease, thyroid issues, all of the autoimmune diseases. I was tested for MS, for Lou Gehrig's, for chronic fatigue. You know, the list of autoimmune issues that could possibly...
And were they all negative?
All negative.
Wow,
Yeah.
that must have been really frustrating for you.
It was very
and
frustrating. Yeah.
Scary?
Yeah, well, it's an unusual experience, and I'm sure that anyone who experiences Lyme disease and certainly enters the acute phase can relate with this sensation of being trapped in your body. So your mind is functioning at a pretty normal rate, other than if you're experiencing depression at the same time. The thoughts aren't real positive, but you're definitely lucid.
Right.
But your body isn't responding to what you're trying to tell it to do. It gets very, very heavy. My muscles felt like lead. I remember at one of the worst periods, waking up one morning and wishing I didn't have to extend the energy to inflate my lungs.
Oh my.
That actual activity was too much. It wore me out, just that. So it's fascinating. So then the next thought was that I'm not sleeping well. I must have sleep disturbances. So I had sleep studies. I had brain scans. It just, the list goes on.
Anything?
Nothing. All negative. Always negative. So It's amazing, and it does, because you become more and more depressed because you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. It all compounds itself and almost makes itself worse. So the depression feeds itself on top of it being influenced with this spirochete that's living in your nervous system. So.
Wow, but you didn't know at that time that that's what was there.
No clue at all. I just knew that something was wrong, and that as much as I tried to get help, no one could help me, and said that it was in my head. And I reached a point of desperation where I realized I had to be my own advocate. I knew what healthy was for me.
And that wasn't it.
And that wasn't it. That wasn't it. So I started studying everything on the internet.
And so what did you try?
I did everything I could possibly do, and it was probably good, because at this time was when an understanding of your own ability and that you can build your immune system with different ways, diet, different choices, exercise, all of these things. So I started drinking green tea alone. That was when the green tea craze came out, and white tea, anything that was pure, organics.
Okay.
I purchased a distiller. I wanted to get the purest water so that anything was getting into my system.
And did any of that help?
I'm sure. I'm sure to the extent that it could.
Yeah.
But this is a bacteria. This is something that's living. It's actually attacking and drilling through my tissues. That's how it's able to travel from system to system. Yes, it's quite an amazing little organism. And for me, it actually, I found out once I was hooked up with a Lyme specialist that it actually had crossed into my brain.
Oh, wow.
And
let's back up. How did you find the Lyme specialist? What?
Well, I became very, very ill, to the point where I was truly catatonic. I mean, I was a shell of myself. And I ended up traveling down here to Florida to visit family, to get away from the north and the snow, and thinking, well, geez, a little sunshine might help. Because certainly it must just be depression and seasonal affective disorder, and to the most extreme. So my family, as soon as they saw me, and they hadn't seen me for some time, were absolutely frightened. They said that I was a shell of myself, and looked like I was death walking. And a dear friend of mine became convinced that it was still Lyme disease, even though I had several tests, so many different kinds of Lyme tests. And I ordered some myself too, with specialty laboratories, and I found out which ones did very, very specific testing for different strands of it.
Right.
And she was able to get me into Dr. Sam Donta, he's a leading specialist. In fact, he was on the original panel that created the positive range for Lyme testing.
Okay.
And he actually disagrees with his findings to this day, which is very interesting, because of someone like me, who most likely was bit by an infected tick when I was a child, maybe even on my scalp, where a rash wouldn't have showed, or I may not have developed a rash. Not everyone does.
Right.
Present Lyme or flu-like symptoms. You know, a mom or dad would think it's a virus, it's the flu. Yeah,
you just caught a cold.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It rest up, and you'll be better in a few days.
And boom, that's it. Then it's in your system, and and this goes on for years and years. And each time it comes back, it gets worse and worse. It almost builds its strength. So I was able to get into him just about 8 years ago now, and sat down in his office, and he had all of my stack of medical files that he had obviously reviewed, made his notes, and he looked up at me and he said, well, I see you tested positive for Lyme on several occasions. And I had to hold my jaw. I couldn't believe the words that I was hearing. And he said, I also have looked at your brain scan results, and I see that what we call crossed the body-brain barrier. He said, it is in your brain. He said, we can do more testing, more scans if you'd like. I mean, if you feel like you want more proof of that.
I don't think you needed any more proof at that point.
After so many years of tests and blood being taken and this and that, talk about a weight that it's amazing how much self-criticism you can hold quietly and always wondering, is it me? Is it in my head? Even though you know that you know what health is for you. You know what,
right.
what life.
But the doctors are telling you that it's in your head.
Exactly.
So, and after so many doctors are telling you that, it's got to be hard not to think it at least a little bit.
And you know, we're taught to put our trust into those valuable opinions, and many times they are valuable. But with this disease, it's unique. It's very unique. It does camouflage as many, and he proceeded to tell me during this consult that he is convinced that Lyme disease is also the only autoimmune, or one of the only autoimmune diseases, that MS, Lou Gehrig's, chronic fatigue, lupus, all of these are undiagnosed Lyme disease that could be treated with antibiotics.
Wow.
When you look at it in those terms, it's amazing.
Well, with so many undiagnosed cases each year, and with the symptoms being able to vary so much, I can see why his thought process would go into that. Hopefully there'll be more studies done, and
hopefully
they'll be able to find out. I know it's kind of controversial.
It is. It's a political disease for sure.
Yeah. There was what was the documentary? There's a documentary on it, isn't there?
Yes. It's fairly, I'm not sure that it's a new release, but it's definitely out on DVD, and it's called Under Your Skin. And it's quite enlightening.
Yeah, I watched it, and
you
it
did?
is, yes.
Yeah, it's her, the main character. I mean, it's obviously a documentary, but the victim of Lyme disease that they heavily interviewed was, I mean, that's where I was. That's the state that I was at. Parkinson's symptoms, I was shaking with tremors. I was forgetting, exactly like Alzheimer's. I could be mid-sentence and everything would disappear. I couldn't type. You know, I'm a graphic artist. Holding the mouse in my hand would go off like a muscle spasm.
So when you got the diagnosis, what did he say the treatment would be after all these years?
I know. And that there was that there was something.
I was going to say, I'm looking at you, so I know there must be a treatment, because you don't have any symptoms of Parkinson's.
No, and you know, and that's the thing with Lyme disease. You can never be sure that you have it all, that you killed it all, that you eradicated the full gamut. But I'm a big believer in believing in health, and so I believe that it's all gone. But yes, he, through the years, certainly continued to study it and found that for him, when he combined Plaquenil, which is the drug for malaria, and antibiotics, a very high dosage of this, 3 times a day, that it forced the antibiotic deeper into the nerve cell. See, the problem with being able to effectively and quickly treat it is that the nerve cell is a cell that the body will not kill, even if it senses that there's something wrong with it, because it's directly linked with the brain. So that's how it stays in the system for so long. Certainly it's not being treated correctly, and then the body says, well, I'm not going to get rid of this, I need this cell.
Right.
And how it gets to every single system of your body, everything, and it moves, and it literally is overnight. So I did that for a year, 3 times a day. He warned me. He said, I don't want you to be discouraged. Just like anything that feels it's going to be attacked and is fearing death, so to speak, he said, the spirochete will fight back. You will get worse before you get better. He said, so be prepared for that, but if you can, I know it's been a rough road, you know, trust that it will get less and less as you move forward. And a year's worth of treatment, he was ready to pull me off, and everything's been great. So
that is wonderful.
Hope.
That's great. And how many years ago was that?
It was about 8 years now. Amazing. But yeah, to feel a life force, a life energy in my body again is such a gift.
And you feel healthy?
I feel fantastic. I never felt better. Never felt better.
Wow.
So I'm very
grateful.
And
are you still doing some of the other things you learned as far as water and nutrition?
Absolutely. You know, they say there's
Were you able to exercise again?
Yes, able to exercise, build my strength. Thank God for muscle memory. You know, that comes back very quickly. I was very fortunate. And certainly, you know, there is a positive. I mean, especially when I was put in a position where I had to advocate for myself. I learned how to take care of myself. I learned that I'm the one that makes and creates my health.
Wow.
Ultimately. And it does have to do with how you perceive things and your belief systems. And so I still am very careful about the kind of water I use. I use ionized water now, not distilled, because I did learn that drinking that only can actually age you faster and detoxify you too much.
Okay.
It's such an attractant to anything that is organic, that's in your body, that actually pulls valuable minerals out too. It's a great detoxifier, like for a weekend every now and then, but I was doing it all the time with everything, thinking it was pure water. So I drink that. I certainly, I do Juice Plus. I take algae, green algae. I feel great. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Exercise. And
do you eat, what about processed foods? Do you stay away from processed foods?
I really do. I do. I really try to eat as much raw, real unprocessed for sure. Yeah, and again, organics as much as possible.
Wonderful. Well, I know that when a lot of people have been faced with a serious illness, especially one that lasts for many, many years, it often changes their outlook on life and maybe their path that they thought that they were headed. Did this happen for you?
Yeah, I would absolutely have to agree with that. It, like anything that gives you polarity in life, that duality, that's something to compare to. I called my so many years of battling Lyme disease as, I refer to it sometimes as my spiritual coma or hell, because I felt so physically disconnected from everything that is. That when you get on the other side of it, it's pretty amazing. It's quite a comparison, and it really elevates the experience of life when you've come from that and worked from that, and were guided to people that could help you get through it and give your body what you need, and then thereafter you're in charge and honoring it and taking care of it. And do you really want it? That's what you could have. Do you really appreciate what you have now? It's like, yes, very much.
Yeah. Teaches you a lot about being grateful.
It does, every day.
That's wonderful. So what are you doing now?
Well, I'm still designing. I'm freelancing in downtown Mount Dora, and that takes up a good deal of my time. And I've also, now that I'm out of my spiritual coma and getting plugged in again, I have a spiritual center that I've organized in Mount Dora as well. It's called Heartistry, which has been a real joy to share that kind of connection with others, like-minded people.
Wonderful, I can imagine.
Yeah, so.
That's great.
Staying real busy.
Well, that's really wonderful. Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to ask you more questions, maybe they've gone down the same path or have some symptoms and, would just like somebody to talk to. I know you're not a doctor, but can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy if
it
was one person that I could help. Through email would be fine.
And what's your email address?
That would be so Michelle Marie, Violet @gmail.com.
Okay, so it's MMV as in Victor, IOLETTE at what?
Gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. It was an honor.
And if you'd like to find out more about World Wellness Education, visit our website at worldwellnesseducation.org. In today's world, it can be extremely difficult to find that perfect balance. We have so many things that we want or need to get done each day. The economy has added additional stress on our lives, and many are out of either work or doing the jobs of 2 to 3 people. Because we are doing multiple jobs to make ends meet, there is less personal time for ourselves and our families. Many of us can't remember the last time that we really enjoyed ourselves. One of the first things to go with our busy schedules is a sense of balance. Many of us are so busy putting out fires that we forget what balance even looks like. We know we are out of balance when the littlest of things begin to upset our entire day. When we dread doing the things that normally do not bother us, or when we lose our temper easily with others. We know that we are out of balance when we do not have time for any type of spontaneity, when we can't remember the last time that we really had fun. Balance, however, is achievable in all of our lives. Balance means being able to include the things that are most important to us on a regular basis. It means allowing time in our schedule to breathe and take in a great sunset. Most importantly, balance is a sense of well-being. We can be extremely busy, but if we are taking care of ourselves, we will always feel in balance. When our lives are in balance, we are able to smile, laugh, and enjoy the smallest details of our lives. We can find peace in knowing that things may not be perfect, yet they will always work themselves out. So how do you find balance in your life? There are 5 things you can do to find immediate balance. First of all, stop making excuses and start taking care of yourself. In order to have balance, you have to take care of yourself by taking small steps. Spend a few minutes planning your day. Everyone is busy. However, one of my favorite quotes is, "Failing to plan is planning to fail." As you make your plan, be sure to include at least a few minutes of exercise. My kickboxing instructor once told me, if you do not use it, you will lose it. It is very easy to become sedentary and have very little movement in our lives. As we age, many move less and less. We tell ourselves that this is normal as we get older. That is a lie, though. It is just another excuse. I know people who are well into their 80s and 90s, and they are still extremely active. They are able to stay active because they never stopped. Even 10 minutes of exercise will help you have a more enjoyable day and will keep you feeling younger. Spend a few minutes in silence each day. Your mind needs this quiet time. Our lives are full of outside stimuli. We have the radios, televisions, and computers going all of the time. There is advertising everywhere we turn. Just a few minutes of quiet time each day, focusing on your breathing, will give you many benefits. You will feel a sense of well-being and you will feel happier. You need to also plan your food. Be sure to fuel your body with nutritious foods so that you will have the energy and mental clarity to do the things that you need to do and enjoy the people in your life. Balance in our lives is important. You will have less stress and more happiness, which of course will lead to a healthier you. So remember to find balance. Quit making excuses. Plan your day. Get a little exercise. Find some time each day to be quiet and eat nutritious foods. This information is not meant to be medical advice. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the contents of this information. Instead, you should consult appropriate health professionals on any matter relating to your health and well-being. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can catch this show each week on Lakefront TV. To find out more about World Wellness Education, check out our website at worldwellnesseducation.org. We'll see you next time.